Hi, welcome back to the Launch Point Leader podcast. My name's Lori.
And I'm Beau.
And we're excited to be back for another week to share a letter the listener has written in. If you or anyone else out there wants to write in a letter, you can write us in at advice@launchpointleader.com.
And do you think they know us by now?
I hope so.
I feel like each week we're like, hey, this is who I am.
Yeah.
It kind of feels weird a little bit.
I think it's good, though. I think it's a good opening line, really eases people into it. What if they forget? What if I'm Beau, you're Lori?
I can see how that could happen. Yeah, that's definitely,
I think it's important.
Yeah, there's an appearance, very, very similarity. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's dive in.
Yeah, absolutely. Our letter this week says, Dear Launch Point, I hope this message finds you well. I enjoy listening to your show, and I think I have a great situation for both of you to give your input on. I'm a leader that has been growing pretty quickly into new roles. I've worked for my company for 4 years and have already served in multiple leadership positions. I've always considered myself deeply committed to personal and professional growth, but now I'm finding it increasingly difficult to dedicate time to my development amidst the demands of a very busy job. The constant juggling of my responsibilities often leaves me feeling overwhelmed and unable to focus on my growth. Could you provide any tips or strategies on how to continue developing myself personally and keep from growing even when my schedule is packed? I'm particularly interested in practical advice that can be integrated into a hectic daily routine. Thanks for your time and work you do through your podcast. I really look forward to your advice. From Development Drought.
So, sounds like a pretty successful person in the leadership area, 4 years, multiple positions. Love it. They know that they need to take some time and get development into their daily routine, but begins to feel like they can't because it's a little chaotic.
Right.
I would say the line in there that stood out to me is you start to feel a little overwhelmed with everything. And I think that's the exact reason that you've got to figure out how to get development into your routine, because it'll help with that feeling of being overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So a couple of things, and I don't know if this will be offensive or not, but I need you to know when I say it to you, I'm saying it to me.
Right.
If development is actually that important to you, you will figure out a way to make it a part of your daily routine. It's either important enough to do that or it's not. Yeah. Call it what it is. So practical advice, we all spend time doing this with our phone.
Yeah.
And we all spend time checking emails when we don't really need to check emails. We all spend time doing tasks and routines that aren't helpful, and they don't have to be done in the moment. So if development's really important to you, schedule in times to be developed. Right. If you've got a car or a commute and you've got a device, which you clearly do because you wrote in electronically, then use that time or that commute and play a podcast.
Yeah.
Once you've listened to all of ours, we give you permission to go somewhere else, right. But play a podcast. Play an audio book. You don't have to read 10 chapters a day, but 10 minutes a few times a day can make for a breakthrough for you when you get to work and you get to that environment that you need to be further developed in. So I say it's either important or it's not. If it's important, you have to figure out the time to do it. And you're going to have to substitute. I read something this morning, actually, in my development time. I read something this morning that said to the effect of, if you want something to change or to improve, there's only 3 things you can do.
Yeah.
You either got to start something that you aren't currently doing, you've got to stop doing something that you're currently doing, or you have to improve something that you're currently doing that's going to get you closer to what you want to achieve.
Yeah, that's really good.
And I mean, and his point was, quit making it complicated, because really it's not. If you want to get better at something, those are really the only 3 things you can do to get better. Quit putting complications and complexity in it and then blaming the complexity. Because I'm with you. I can blame my schedule, my family. I mean, when I leave here today, I got all kinds of things going on. But when I leave for today, I'm getting in the car and I'm going to drive somewhere, and then I'm driving somewhere else. And then so I've got time.
Right.
It's just, is it important enough for me to use my time so that I can grow and develop as a leader, or do I make it complex and make excuses?
Yeah, I think that's really true. What you said right in the beginning, like, if it's really important to you, you'll make it happen. And that can be tough at first, because your reaction is, well, I'm really busy. I have a busy job. I'm in a new role. I've got this time that I've got to dedicate things to, like, people need me. And it can be really easy to jump on that and stay in that mentality, but you really go, okay, but I know I'm feeling drained. I know I'm feeling overwhelmed, like they said, and nothing's going to change unless, just like you said, you start something new or you change what you're currently doing.
Yeah, and start small. I mean, nobody says you've got to go read a book next week. I mean, if you do, great, but start small. If you're not doing anything right now, start with 10, 15 minutes a day of something.
Yeah.
And then watch what happens as it begins to kind of cleanse your mind and give you a fresh perspective on the things that you're dealing with. So don't feel like you've got to make a radical change. What happens is when you make small changes over time, they lead to big change.
Yeah.
So, start really small. And, if you're already doing 10 or 15 minutes a day, then double it, up it, and just see. I think the results that you'll see in your role, in your job, I think it'll help you so much with the feeling of being overwhelmed and hectic. I think it'll help tremendously in that.
I think that's a good point too, because it can be really easy when you're looking at developing yourself or growing or learning to play the comparison game and say like, oh, well, this person, I know my coworker has read, their goal is to read 2 books a month, or their goal is they're reading for 2 hours a day in the morning. Like they get up really early or have this kind of schedule, or you see online, like you've got to beat the grind and you've got to be doing this like the really intense like influencers.
Yeah.
But finding out what's sustainable and starting small is a really good way to look at that. And then I was also thinking about just the idea of scheduling your day and to-do list. I think when you're really busy, sounds like you probably have a structure in your day. And I think when someone told me to like not only schedule time for personal development, but schedule the things I want to personally get done as well, because when I get in points like this where I'm not developing myself, I find I also start getting loose on things that I know bring me joy personally, because sometimes I feel like I'm not developing and growing when I'm also just really drained and not doing things to relax. So don't be afraid to schedule yourself time to relax, because you're going to do it and you're going to take your eye off the prize in opportune times. If you're not giving yourself that time, it's going to find you. Like your brain is just not able to handle 24/7 being on, which in a really busy, challenging job. And if you have family at home and like those kind of demands can happen. But when I started scheduling myself intentional time on my calendar, it kind of gave me that permission to read or find those pockets of time, like while driving, listen to an audiobook. So it really just changed my perspective on it's not extra or a waste of my time. It's actually really necessary. I think it helped change that mindset, because sometimes it does feel like I'm not being as productive as I could, but putting it on my schedule, putting it on my calendar and seeing like, oh, from 8 to 10 a.m., this is what I'm focusing on for the day. It really helped make me feel more like, yes, this is taking ownership of it. I should be doing this.
Yeah, that's a good point. At the end of the day, development is up to us individually, and we're going to have to take charge of it at some point. And hopefully that we can break away a little bit. This individual can, and maybe rest is part of what they need to do first for their development. I don't know.
Sure.
R&R. So, but I think those are great points. Really, I think it's easier said than done, but let's not make it too complex.
Right.
Let's create some time, get it on the schedule, figure out what we're going to do, and see what happens.
Right. And when they look at practical advice and starting small, I think it's what you said. I think it's finding 30 minutes in your week to start with.
Sure.
Finding 10, 15 minutes a day that you're starting with, whether it's when you're driving, listening to a book or audio book, or reading your physical books, whatever that can be. But looking for outside development and those opportunities is going to be invaluable to help you start feeling that. And I think until you start small with those pieces, you're never going to feel better.
And if you ever need any advice on what books to potentially read with what you're trying to figure out, give us an email, give us a shout, because books are kind of our thing. We've got so many in our offices. We would love to give you some, a couple of things, or even other podcasts or audiobooks. We can definitely help you with that. So definitely reach out to us if you're struggling with what specifically to read or to listen to.
Absolutely.
Other than this show.
Right. As you said earlier, listen to all the episodes
this is the staple.
Of the podcast first.
Yeah.
And then we've got some other great suggestions.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, Development Drought, thank you so much for writing in. We really appreciate just your honesty about where you're at in your leadership journey right now. I think it's important not only for you to grow, but for people listening in that are going through something similar to be able to learn and grow as well. If you or someone you know has a question or just a piece of advice you want from us, we would love to answer that and give our insight. You can always write us in at advice@launchpointleader.com. Thanks.
Have a great day.